Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something that, well, it sounds like pure philosophy.
Right.
This idea that intelligence can exist completely outside of consciousness. But we're going to treat it almost like a blueprint for how reality
And the
works.
source for this is really unusual.
It is. We have just one, a conceptual model from a YouTube video called No Conscious Awareness.
Mm,
So our mission is to pull out the core argument here, which is pretty radical.
just very radical.
It suggests that the real driver of creation, the force that's actually building everything, it doesn't need to think, it doesn't need to feel or even know that it's doing its job.
Which just turns everything on its head.
It really does. It's a
Yeah.
fundamental reversal of how most of us see the universe.
Yeah, it completely flips the script. And what's so wild is that this source, it doesn't just say, oh, it's all energy or simple physics. It insists the universe is driven by, well, it calls them diminutive intelligences
Diminutive intelligences.
or sapient forces. You can think of them as these, I don't know, fundamental microagents that are incredibly high functioning. But the key, the whole point, is that they operate completely below our conscious awareness.
But they're the ones doing the creating.
They're the creators.
Yeah.
We are analyzing the blueprint of a silent intelligence.
A silent intelligence. Okay, let's unpack this.
Where should we even start?
Well, if these forces are the foundation, we have to know what they are. What are the rules? We have to, accept their premise for a moment and look at these new building blocks.
Exactly. We're stepping into their world. And the source calls them sentient entities. It says they're physically present across all scales of reality.
All scales.
All scales. They're coursing through everything, from the tiniest constituents known to us, so, smaller than quantum,
Wow.
all the way up to the intricacies of cells.
Hmm?
They're basically the wiring of everything.
So I have to ask, are we talking about something theoretical, like a concept? Or are they supposed to be actual physical things?
That's the key distinction here. They are defined as being intensely physical,
Okay.
and their existence is governed by these really stringent, almost mechanical rules. The source is very clear that their being requires temporal and spatial dimensions.
So in other words, they aren't ghosts. They're not some metaphysical idea floating around outside of reality.
Precisely. They are part of physics.
Yeah.
They're bound by space and time, just like we are. You could think of them as being as physical as a photon, just on a much more fundamental scale.
And there's this other rule. Their entire being, it says, hinges on one thing: perpetual motion.
They have to keep moving.
Constantly. Which sounds exhausting. Why is movement so important? Why can't they just sit still?
Because that's what makes them the engines of the universe. The source is basically defining creation itself as an act of constant activity. If everything is built from these moving, intelligent parts, then the universe is never static.
It's always in flux.
Always. It's this constant low-level buzz of intelligent activity.
And there's a pretty serious consequence if they do stop moving.
Oh yeah, this is where it gets really profound. When that perpetual motion ceases, the source says a transformation into energy takes place.
So they don't just vanish.
No, they convert. They fundamentally change state. It frames them as the basic moving parts of reality,
Yeah.
always on the edge of just becoming pure, raw energy if they stop doing their job. Their natural state is motion.
That puts a huge emphasis on just doing, on activity.
Mm.
Okay, so if that's the scale, these fundamental, always moving particles, then the next question has to be, what's the function? What's the point of all this motion?
Right. Now we go from the what to the how and why. And this is where that paradox of inherent intelligence comes in.
Because they aren't conscious, but they are intelligent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They aren't sitting around thinking about things like we do.
Yeah.
But they possess what the source calls inherent intelligence.
How is that different from just, programming? A robot follows code, but we don't say it's intelligent.
That's the question this whole model forces you to ask. The difference is in the outcome, in the scope. Simple programming is limited. This inherent intelligence, though, it's capable of orchestrating countless interactions
Across all those different scales you mentioned.
simultaneously. And the results are things we'd call complex, adaptive, creative. It's like it has an awareness of context even without self-awareness. It's intelligence without introspection.
And the scope of this is total.
Absolutely total. The source says the entirety of life harnesses these sentient entities. It's not just for big, complex creatures. Every biological function, every heartbeat, every cell division, it's all powered by them. They're the universal OS.
And it's not like there's some central computer running the show.
Correct. It's completely decentralized. Every single entity, from a minuscule insect to a colossal being, is exercising control through these forces.
It's a bottom-up system.
A completely self-organizing bottom-up system. Imagine billions of tiny, hyper-competent architects all following local instructions, but together they build a coherent reality.
The collective result of all that silent work must be just mind-boggling.
It is, the source says, an astonishing array of events unfurls. Just because of the sheer volume of these interactions, it's the ultimate example of emergence.
Order that looks like chaos.
Order disguised as randomness, yeah. Perfect organization on the micro scale leads to this beautiful complexity on the macro scale.
The source gets pretty poetic describing this, doesn't it?
It really does. It talks about a silent intellect that does flow, and about invisible hands that sculpt the fate of creatures meek and those elate.
Elate meaning creatures with wings.
Right. From insects to birds to, well, us.
Yeah.
The poetry is there to make you feel the scale of it.
Yeah.
It's saying that reality isn't arbitrary. It's being sculpted in detail all the time by forces we can't see.
Okay, so if creation is bubbling up from these tiny silent interactions, these invisible hands, let's bring this back home. Let's talk about you, the listener, as a creative agent.
Yeah, how do we fit in?
Here's where it gets really interesting. If the universe is built on this stuff, where do we, with our big conscious brains, actually plug in?
This is the application part of the model.
Yeah.
And it says we are actively wielding these remarkable diminutive intelligences to shape our desires.
Note that word, wielding. We aren't just watching, we're using it.
We're the conductor, even if we can't see the orchestra.
And the result of that wielding is huge. It facilitates countless unfathomable creative processes that are happening all the time.
Every idea you have, everything you build, even just thinking about a future event. The model says these sapient forces are translating that into reality.
But this is where the paradox comes in, and it's a big one.
A huge one.
We're doing all this creating, but the actual work, the manipulation of these forces, is shrouded in conscious unawareness.
We're pulling off these incredible feats of creation without having the slightest clue how we're doing it. We have a desire, and the invisible machinery just starts humming.
I think we need an analogy here. Is it like breathing? You know, you do it automatically, you're not aware of it unless you focus on it. Is creation like that?
It's a similar idea, but deeper. Breathing is managed by your brainstem. This process, according to the force, is managed by your essence, which is beyond the physical thinking brain. The force suggests that while the creative process itself is unconscious, our essence comprehends it.
So we're layered. There's the conscious mind, which is busy with day-to-day stuff, what the source calls thoughts that feel.
Right. And then there's this deeper essence.
And the real work happens there.
Exactly. The deep mysteries of creation are, and I'm quoting again, beyond the grasp of thoughts that feel. Meaning, if you try to consciously figure out how your desire becomes reality, you'll fail. It's not in that part of your system. It's in the realm of the essence.
It's like trying to consciously manage every single electrical signal in your nervous system.
Perfect analogy.
You just give the command the desire, and the system, which is the essence and these sapient forces, handles the incredibly complex execution.
That's it. The source says it's the sapient forces that propel these ceaseless processes. We supply the desire, our deeper essence guides the intention, and these little intelligences do the work. The conscious mind just gets the final product delivered.
The source has that really elegant description of us. It calls us the architects of dreams who harness these sparks in endless dreams, crafting futures, shaping fire, unaware yet fueled by desire.
I mean, that sums it up perfectly. We're building the future, driven by our desire, but the tools we're using, the sparks, are handled automatically.
It really reorganizes how you think about cause and effect. We assume consciousness is the one in the driver's seat making all the moves.
But this source says consciousness is more like the passenger who just says where they want to go. The actual driving, all the complicated navigation, is handled by this silent, unaware intelligence.
Which would explain those moments of genius or strange synchronicities that seem to come out of nowhere.
Exactly. It wasn't random. It was the silent intellect working off your deep, non-conscious desires.
Okay, so let's try to pull this all together for you. The core idea here is that intelligent, always moving forces, sapient forces, are the actual mechanics of creation.
And they're constantly shaping reality.
We guide them with our deepest non-conscious desires, and all of this happens completely below the radar of our normal waking thoughts.
And that gives so much weight to the final lines of the source material. After describing all of this silent, unaware intelligence, it ends with, in every pulse, in every breath lies consciousness beyond life's death.
Hmm.
If creation is really driven by a silent intellect that orchestrates everything, then maybe the ultimate form of consciousness isn't something that dies with a physical brain.
You mean the network itself is the consciousness?
The true foundational awareness could be the underlying intelligence of the whole system, an intelligence that is never aware of itself as an I, but only as being.
It shifts the meaning of intelligence from a single mind to an all-pervasive silent field. So what does this all mean?
Yeah, that's the big question.
You right now are wielding these remarkable diminutive intelligences to shape your desires without any conscious thought. What unrecognized creative momentum are you generating? What huge foundational changes are those invisible hands sculpting in your fate just because of the quiet desires you hold far below the surface of your mind?
Lot to think about.
We'll leave you with that thought. We'll see you on the next dip dive.